Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and it has been a very long time since I actually said that particular catchphrase, because despite the fact that back in during our Let's Play of Sonic Boom Rise of Loic, that basically though I just couldn't be bothered able to actually go for that catchphrase, because obviously though we've already experienced one of the worst Sonic games ever made, but that's besides the point, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you our next redo Let's Play. That's what appears to be. Oh no, not this game right here. Well folks, ladies and gentlemen though, we're about to be experiencing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1. And obviously though it's about the fact that after all we're still in October so far, and relatively speaking though it's about the fact that we've only got about a couple of days left. Specifically though, we've only got 20 more days to go until Sonic X Shadow Generations was going to be releasing on multiple platforms, and recently though, I've recently pre-ordered not only one, but 3 versions of Sonic X Shadow Generations, so stay tuned until specifically later on in October. So either way though, and the reason why we decided able to do this game again, and technically speaking though, this is actually the 4th time we're going to be experiencing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, this is mainly because back in Journey Evolves Event 2012, that we somehow start this Let's Play off on the WiiWare version, and relatively speaking though, it's about the fact I remember back then that basically though, the camera quality is terrible, and on top of that, the commentary is not that great either. Thus, not to mention though, is about the fact that what I found out, that Piglet did get a lot of rage quits on specifically one of those special stages, so relatively speaking though, and we also did this back in 2015 and also 2017 respectively, and as a result though, when it comes to 2015 though, that obviously though, the quality itself is fine, but it's just that the commentary is pretty abysmal, and meanwhile on the subject when it comes to 2017 though, while the quality itself is good all in all, however though, I will admit though, the microphone commentary is pretty terrible. So as a result, here we are now in 2024, although the quality itself is pretty much exactly the same, although except the fact that it's no longer there anymore of course. So relatively speaking though, hopefully though, the commentary will be a lot more better than in forms of how it does it back in June, in forms of around a couple of years, ranging from 2012, 2015, and 2017 respectively, and you probably get the idea for this point. So anyway, so yeah, this is the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1. Obviously though, it's about the fact that, well, basically though, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 was not the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 when it was conceived. I mean, relatively speaking though, it was originally going to be a mobile exclusive game, tentatively titled Sonic the Portable, and the reason why I say this is because we'll save that particular topic as soon as we're able to get on to the next zone. So because of this though, so as you can tell about the fact that it plays kind of similar to the classic Genesis days, specifically the 16-bit Sonic the Hedgehog games, except the noticeable differences being is about the fact that if you couldn't tell already, the first zone we're going to be jump into, which appears to be Splash Hill Zone, which is basically Green Hill Zone except with the modern aesthetics. And relatively speaking though, is about the fact that if you couldn't tell already about the fact that we are once again going to be playing through the PlayStation 3 version, if you couldn't tell already, not only for the fact that you can able to actually use motion controls on the actual special stages in general, but it's also about the fact that with the actual button icons you're more able to see once we dive right into the first special stage in the game, and of course the trophy pop-up notification. So as a result though, I was originally trying to able to play this on the Xbox 360 version, but I figured I was able to use the PS3 version for the time being, because obviously though, D-pad is pretty good when it comes to 2D platforming. So anyways though, and as you can tell about the fact that in order able to actually access to the special stage right here, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, and as well as the forms of other Sonic games in general, ranging from Sonic Colors on the DS, alongside with the forms of Sonic Lost World on the 3DS, and alongside with the forms of some other stuff you know as well. Basically though, you have to jump into the giant ring, and as a result, if you jump into this special stage ring, obviously though, it takes you to the special stage right here. And obviously though, the special stage is in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, as you can tell, basically though is about the fact that we are controlling the maze, and usually relatively speaking though, unlike in Sonic 1, you have to take control of Sonic himself. In Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 this time, is that as you can tell, you have to tilt the stage around rather than just controlling Sonic himself, because as far as I'm aware, Sonic did somehow manage to able to go on the dead center of this particular rotation and stuff like that, which I know for a fact that it's been a very long time since I actually have last played this game for sure, since back in 7 years ago, which, as a result, no matter what though, is about the fact I'm pretty sure is the reason why, because this game right here is pretty much overshadowed nowadays compared to the forms of how it does it for, like, well, for instance, it's about the fact that we've got some more superior 2D Sonic games throughout the years, including with Sonic Mania, and even nowadays with Sonic Superstars. And relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that, well, I'll get to the actual more criticism with the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 and same applies with Episode 2 as well, which, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that when it comes to uploading schedules in particular, when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1 as well as Episode 2, it will be definitely going to be on the forms of the weekends department, because let me tell you, those games in particular are super duper short, including with the additional bonus episodes, which is only accessible not only on the PlayStation 3, but as well as the Xbox 360 version, as well as PC Steam as well. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, as I said before, it's about the fact that this game was originally going to be a mobile game exclusive, while every once in a while though, it's about the fact that later on though, it was going on to multi-platform, and as a result though, it's about the fact that it did release on PlayStation 3 on the forms of the PlayStation Network Store, and on top of that, the forms of Xbox 360 version, and there's also the PC Steam version, and finally the WiiWare version on the Nintendo Wii. And relatively speaking though, speaking of which, when it comes to the WiiWare version, Episode 1 is the only release of the forms of the Wii console, because as far as I'm aware, as soon as we dive right into Episode 2 though, obviously though that can wait and join at some point in the next couple of weekends up ahead. So either way, oh yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the, I would say today this is the 5th of October today, in some cases in 2024 today, and relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, did you guys know about the fact that it's been about 6 years ago since Super Mario Party did first came out on the Nintendo Switch, and I can't even believe it's been 6 years since, you know, Super Mario Party was first released back in 2018, and while looking back on it though, I still find the character roster is pretty good and everything, and certain minigames are pretty enjoyable. I will admit though, it's about the fact that I'm not a big fan of the Joy-Con focused type of control scheme, and on top of all that stuff though, the board's design is not only lacking, but it's also incredibly small, and that's the reason why that every nowadays, that when it comes to not only Mario Party Superstars, but as well as the forms of, you know, the next Mario Party game will be on its way, Super Mario Party Jamboree, that thankfully though, the boards themselves are a lot more bigger than the forms of how it does it on Super Mario Party in 2018. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that still, no matter what though, I'm still basically excited for it, you know? And speaking of which though, it's about the fact that we've only got about 12 more days to go until Super Mario Party Jamboree is expected to be releasing. So either way, I suppose I was originally able to explain about that particular game actually, but I'll save that until tomorrow, just to ensure for the fact that we can able to actually discuss upon the forms of the actual brief history of why Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 is released. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, let's just say when it comes to the forms of any other aspects and all that stuff. Although, before we get to more details about this though, it's about the fact that you probably do realize about the fact that the physics in this game is completely different compared to the forms of how it does in the classic era of Sonic games. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, usually this game is being developed by Dims, who is also responsible for the forms of how the fact that with not only with Sonic Pocket Adventure, but as well as Sonic Advance trilogy of games with Sonic Advance 1, 2, and 3, as well as the Sonic Rush games, including Sonic Colors on the DS as well. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that when it comes to Sonic's movesets, when it comes to the momentum, as well as the physics and all that stuff, it matches the exact same movements as well as the forms of the actual, the thing itself is based off from Sonic Rush. And I was like, I almost was thought they're trying to match up the exact same physics from the likes of Sonic Advance 1, although relatively speaking I was about the fact that I can totally see why, that a lot of people seem to call, well, Sonic Advance 1 as the forms of the true Sonic the Hedgehog 4, or every nowadays though where it comes to Sonic Mania, or even especially noticeable with Sonic Superstars, I don't know, it's a bit tad confusing at first glance, especially concerning for the fact that, like I said before, it's been a very long time since I actually have last played this game for sure. Although I will say is about the fact I do like the actual different gimmicks they somehow added in when it comes to the forms of certain stages, as far as you can definitely tell. Like for instance though, is about the fact in Act 3, in Splash Hill Zone, as you can tell, that the entire background of the actual sky was actually in sunset, and also there was some level gimmicks here and there. Like for instance, in Act 1, it's nothing special about it, it's just the forms of the very first level you can able to come across into, whilst unlike Act 2, you can able to actually interact with the forms of the swinging vines in order to able to go from place to place, and meanwhile for Act 3, you are obviously able to actually interact with the actual zip lines in order to able to go across the other bits. So either way though, chances are though is about the fact that until whenever we get onto the later stages though, we will definitely come across into a lot of gimmicks involved. So relatively speaking though, yeah, there's nothing else to really say about that, I guess. So anyways though, here we go on to Special Stage 3. Sorry for a little bit of a tongue twist in the end folks, but that's just mainly because if you couldn't tell already about the fact that when it comes to the forms of how the fact that I was expecting to try to say about this is that I'm just gonna have to able to try to focus on this from now on, because as you can tell, what's different about the forms of in the special stages in both Sonic the Hedgehog 1 as well as in this game in particular is that as you can tell, there is now a time limit. So as a result though, in Special Stage 3 in general, basically though we have to keep on collecting those specific additional time items, and as a result though, the more you're trying to collect them, obviously though you are able to actually got plenty of time in order to able to actually finish the entire special stage. And as a result though, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 1 special stage, if you dare touch the forms of those dangerous obstacles, like for instance those bumpers right there, it will knock you to these specific spots. And usually relatively speaking now, do you remember in the forms of in the special stages in Sonic 1, that if you dare touch the goal objects, basically though it just kicks you out of the special stage? Well, in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 this time around though, is that obviously though it now shows us the exclamation marks. So it still functions the same way as the forms of how it does in Sonic 1 basically. So anyway, so every once in a while though is about the fact that I believe in each and every single zones, when it comes to not only for Episode 1, but as well as Episode 2 in general, which again we'll get to that in a moment, basically though each and every single zone does manage to contain not only 3 acts, but as well as the boss fights. So basically though, this boss looks familiar, doesn't it? Well, here's the actual biggest criticism when it comes to Episode 1 in general compared to Episode 2. Basically though, the amount of bosses in this game, not only is incredibly pathetically easy, but also they love to rehash the exact same boss types from the other Sonic games. Like for instance, the first boss in Episode 1 is just basically Green Hill Zone boss again, except the noticeable difference is this time that Dr. Eggman now actually uses a different attack once he's now onto the halfway point of the entire boss fight. And relatively speaking, that was about the fact that, well, every once in a while though is about the fact that when you start the boss up, basically though is about the fact that you collect rings along the way. In addition to that though, the music will start to pick up a bit, and then once we get to the forms of almost down bit, or specifically when he's almost down actually, basically though the music will change, and I will admit though right away, I'm not a big fan of the soundtrack when it comes to the forms of the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 in general, which again, I'll talk more about that until whenever we get to tomorrow, because, well, like I said before though, it's about the fact that those games in particular are extremely short. So because of that, and there's also one thing's worth noting for, that unfortunately though, we no longer have our Let's Play of Sonic Mania right now, but that's just mainly because, well, don't get me wrong, the quality itself is good all in all, but I will admit though right away, I'm not a big fan of the forms of how terrible our commentary goes, especially concerning for the fact that gets all muffled and everything, and as a result though, it's not as pleasant to look at, or just listening to rather. So because of that though, yeah, I might have to do a redo Let's Play of Sonic Mania as well, alongside with the forms of some other like Sonic stuff in general, which as a result though, then again though, we'll talk more about that in the future. So either way though, so yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Did you guys remember playing Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1? Although, do you like it, or do you not like it just because obviously though it's about the fact that, well, the physics is completely off, and on top of that, they love to reuse the exact same level themes as in the previous Sonic games? And to be more specifically though, that most of the level themes in this game are basically rehashes from the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 most likely, which that could be also applies for Episode 2 as well, but then again though, we'll get to more about that game during at some point whilst Super Mario Party Jamboree will be expecting to be releasing. So because of this though, yeah, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that as you can tell already, wow, we're going to be getting a lot of extra lives so far, especially concerning for the fact, did you know it's incredibly easy to get a lot of lives in this game, by the way? Yeah, it kind of reminds me like a similar trump as the forms of New Super Mario Bros. 2 a bit, except unlike in New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS though, basically though, your objective is to collect a whole bunch of coins basically, and meanwhile though, it's about the fact that there are some DLC was actually going to be there, but it's kind of unfortunate though that you can no longer get the entire DLC for New Super Mario Bros. 2, and that could be also applied to the forms of other games you know as well nowadays. So anyway, so as you can see on screen, we somehow ended up in Casino Street Zone. Basically though, this game's equivalent to Casino Night Zone, where basically though, you have to interact with the slot machines, and then if you line up the exact symbols of the slot machines, basically though, you get certain rings for your different stimulations. So, but here's the catch though, is about the fact that when it comes to slot machines in general though, I'm actually going to be ignoring them for the time being until I'm actually going to be showing you guys not only the console version of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, but as well as the mobile phone versions, because did you know that two of those levels in general are entirely different compared to the console version and the mobile phone version? Well, you see why, as soon as we're able to actually collect the fourth Chaos Emerald, which, as you can tell, this particular special stage loves bumpers so much, and you get, you know, bump all over the place, basically. So because of that, though, yeah, I will admit though right away, I'm not a big fan of those bumpers in this special stages right there, because they are so annoyingly to deal with, and relatively speaking, you know, you easily get bumped. So yeah, and no matter what though, luckily, I can able to retry the special stage if I dare mess it up. Unless if you do get this specific timing going. So, yes, just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush Adventure, alongside with the forms of, I would say, Sonic Colors on the DS, basically though, you can actually have the ability to able to retry the special stages at any time. So relatively speaking though, it may ruin the challenge, but regardless of anything else though, I just want to get this game out of the way, because I already know for a fact that, well, the reason why this game was actually called Sonic the Hedgehog 4, at least to me though, is to, well, simply push units, and the reason why this game was actually released in multi-platform is because that they did lock behind the next number entry behind the forms of, well, mobile phones, fans will collectively go ape crap. I mean, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, it's kind of hard for me to say this, but after I experienced Sonic Mania quite a lot of times, and occasional moments with Sonic Superstars, I'm gonna say though, this game is actually kind of hard for me to go back into this game. In fact, I didn't get back into this game at all since 7 years ago, because let me tell you, this game is just dull, and I do not enjoy this game anymore. Well, then again though, it's probably because of how the fact that, well, it was this particular game right here with both Sonic the Hedgehog 4, not only with Episode 1, but as well as Episode 2 in general, it was potentially the episodic release, because almost it was originally going to be exclusive for mobile games, but it's decided to go onto multi-platform instead. So either way though, it is also worth noting for us about the fact that when the actual game came out originally though, like the prototype version, since in during the forms of sometime in 2010, and my goodness, what the heck is going on with the forms of quite a number of things, like the amount of textures, specifically though in Splash Hill Zone, is almost like plastic grass, and the physics is gone completely off, and relatively speaking though, it just feels incredibly stilted, and relatively speaking though, because of that though, the game has been delayed until October 2010, and because of that though, the reason why that game was delayed of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 until likely in October 2010 is because of the forms of the amount of backlash, which as a result though, yeah, you probably also realize about this is about the fact that there's no ability to play as Tails or Knuckles in this adventure, because relatively speaking when it comes to Episode 1, if you couldn't tell already, you play as Sonic the whole way throughout the entire adventure of Episode 1, and I will admit though right away though, is about the fact that the amount of zones, not only because it's a lack of originality, but it's also about the fact that there are only 4 zones in the game, and relatively speaking though, it's just about the fact that it's so little in content, and relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that, well, I can totally see why about the fact that a lot of people seem to don't really enjoy Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 anymore these days, after likely or so for 14 years ago. So relatively speaking though, I was usually excited at first glance, especially concerning for the fact that the first version I've somehow experienced is the WiiWare version, because again, Episode 1 is the only episode to be released on the WiiWare, because unlike Episode 2, it never came onto the Wii, probably because of the graphical limitations. So I'm guessing that seems to be the case, especially concerning for the fact that, again, we'll talk more about the forms of Episode 2 later on throughout the majority of the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Let's Play series, for that matter, just before, you know, Sonic X Shadow Generations is on its way until 20 days from now, so I'm still basically excited for, you know. But anyways, as you can tell right there, we're now in Act 2 of Casino Street Zone, and basically though, assuming if you play the console version, either on the Wii, Xbox 360, or PlayStation 3, the level is actually called Road of Cards, and basically though, it's about the fact you have to deal with the forms of the amount of cards ranging from platforming to autopilot segments, and relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that also the music is incredibly different as well, although I do enjoy some amount of musical tracks in the forms within both episodes, which again, I'll talk more about those specific good music choices probably later down the road. So either way though, and relatively speaking of, the story is nothing special, it's just you trying to face off against with Dr. Eggman, and that's all there is to it. So either way though, so let's make our runabout, and as a result, we somehow made our way to the very end of this particular, well, the stage itself. So either way, oh yeah, something worth noting for is that the physics in this particular trying to get to this method of the special stage ring, actually I'll get more about that until whenever we get onto Act 3 on the other hand, because, well, as you can tell, that's basically the console version of Act 2 of Casino Street Zone. However, if you play the mobile version, you get yourselves a completely different level gimmick, and as a result though, it's like a different type of level we can go into. And remember I mentioned this before, is about the fact that the reason why I somehow ignored the slot machines until at this point right here. Basically though, in Act 2 in the mobile version, it's basically though, you have to be able to accumulate as many points as you could. Specifically though, we need to reach for about 100,000 points, and basically though, it's a bit grinding basically, and also it's a little bit repetitious, tedious process, because obviously though, you keep on getting to the slot machines, and hopefully, God forbid, if you manage to reach 1,000 points or 100,000 points in general, basically though, you can go along now. So basically though, yeah, I will admit though right away though, is about the fact I'm very glad that this level will not be brought over to the console version, just because, as I said before, it's a lot more tedious, and it's a little bit repetitious annoyance at the same time, because no matter what though, you'll be spending most of your time just trying to able to go onto not only 1, but 2 slot machines in general, like for instance with the actual 3 slot machine right here, the center of the actual table, and there's also the forms of the actual points thing right there at the top. So relatively speaking though, yeah, this stage is not that fun to me though, especially concerning for the fact that although originally though, on the prototype version of the console version, that this level was originally going to be on the final version of the game, but obviously though, it's about the fact that it's going to be on mobile phone exclusive. So because of that though, yeah, because if you don't have enough points to able to finish the level, that little orange flipper right there just keeps on making you just trying to able to rank up as many points as you could. So either way, and what's even crazy about the iPhone version of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 is that for whatever reason, the sound effects is a bit off in Journey Forms that specific sequence worth noting for, which I know for a fact that it's usually apparent, whilst back in Journey Forms sometime in 2010, basically though, the sound effects are completely normal, but for whatever reason, on the HD version of this particular app on the phone, basically though, the sound effects sounds way too off. Like, it sounds a lot more deeper and deeper, rather than just, you know, normal aesthetic, you know, sound effects in general. So I've no idea why they come up with that decision. So either way, thankfully though, I've got myself my glorious jackpot right there, so I can now leave the level, and potentially we can now move on to the special stage 5, assuming on the console version, because, well, you probably already noticed, if you couldn't tell, on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen, there's additional button, which as a result though, yeah, the iOS version is all touch controls, so relatively speaking though, you can also use the motion controls if you like to, but honestly though, you might give that control scheme a pass, especially considering for the fact that there's going to be yet another level that is going to be exclusive onto mobile phones during at some point until on the 3rd zone. So either way, so let's move on to special stage 5, and relatively speaking though, we are still, well, in order to able to continue your progressioning for the special stages, by the way, is that you have to keep on collecting rings, because as you can tell, every time whenever you do manage to collect enough rings, basically though, if you hear that familiar jingle, like for instance, it's heavily borrowed from the likes of Sonic Adventure 2, whenever you obtain the emblems, or Sonic Adventure if you will, basically though, if you hear that particular jingle, that means the path will be accessible. So either way though, yeah, it's important to collect rings, you know, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though, in addition about the fact that you can able to, you know, rank up some more points, but it's also about the fact that you get yourselves an instant extra life if you manage to reach for about 10,000 points in Journey Forms of specific stage, kind of like the forms of how it does in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in that regard. However though, it does not give you a continue, so instead it just gives you an extra life, so yeah, nothing else to add. So either way though, because yeah, every time if you do manage to able to hit that particular closed gate right there, while you still need to collect such an amount of rings, it actually bumps you even further, so yeah, I just want to classify that. So there we go, special stage 5 is complete, and what's even interesting about this is though, is that, well, differently from the forms of how it does on the previous classic 2D Sonic games is your form of progression, and as a result though, as you can tell, I just somehow managed to press my triangle button on my PlayStation 3 controller, and as a result though, that allows me to able to traverse into the next zone instantly, rather than just trying to go back into the world map. And yes, the reason why I say the world map is because if you don't press the forms of the triangle button or the Y button if you play the Xbox 360 version, or I would say the 1 button for the Wii version or something. Mind you, it's been ages since I actually have last played the WiiWare version, because let me tell you, this game is so dang dull, and I just cannot really stress enough that I will not recommend this game these days, especially after we somehow got ourselves not only Sonic Mania these days, but as well as the forms of Sonic Superstars as well, which thankfully though, those 2 games I referring to earlier did things a little bit better. And I know for a fact that for one noticeable thing, that obviously though, the physics when it comes to Sonic Mania and Sonic Superstars managed to fit the classic style perfectly. Well, they still have some issues here and there, but we'll get to those and during at some point until next year for 2025, because obviously though, 2024 is almost about to be wrapping up at some point, and around 2 months left from now on, so either way. And look at that, is that speed booster very unnecessary for this placement? Like, I can usually make it there just fine. I mean, usually relatively speaking now, not only for episode 1, but as well as episode 2 in general, this game loves not only springs, but also speed boosters as well, which no wonder why they keep on spreading not only speed boosters, but as well as a lot of springs in some stages. Like, for goodness sake, I can able to actually take control, thank you. I mean, relatively speaking, it's already bad enough that the physics in this game is completely off. Like, for instance, if you try to do a spin dash, like the forms of how it does it for the sake of the forms of whatever you're trying to come across, it's that little hill as I somehow did earlier in Act 1 in Casino Street Zone. Basically though, the momentum doesn't go anywhere, and usually relatively speaking though, is about the fact that if you come towards the slope, basically though, in a classic games, if you manage to do like a spin attack, you can realistically try to able to go even faster while you're trying to go onto this little ball form in order to able to get your momentum going. But in this game in particular, if you let go forward at all, Sonic stops completely, as the friction in this game is going into the forms of the actual slows down to ridiculous amounts, which also brings me into yet another issue of this game, Sonic's acceleration. Does anyone seriously believe about the fact that Sonic's running animation just feels a bit too sluggish? But I do know for certain for one thing is about the fact that Sonic does have a walking animation in this title, which that could be also applies with episode 2 as well, but you get the idea for this point. Also, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic 06, there are a few occasional moments that if you come towards the loop, when you're trying to deal with the forms of the physics as being completely moot, that basically though Sonic will once again become the forms of Spider Sonic again. So yeah, that's a little bit of a nonsensical thing to have, but that's just a way of how physics usually plays out in this game, which that could be also applies with episode 2, but episode 2 did slightly better than the forms of how it does in episode 1, but not by much for the sake of the forms of other complaints I have. So but I digress. But that's just me anyway though. But the reason why we still got Sonic the Hedgehog 4 episode 1 as it is, because we are still a Sonic fanatic of course, but that's just the way of how I feel about it throughout. So anyway, and there's also another thing that really bugs me about this particular game the most, and that's on curling off the slope, that if you couldn't tell on some stages anyway though, although I'll explain more about that if we go on to the next zone, specifically though until tomorrow, so either way. Oh jeez, here comes the dangerous part. Whew, okay. Thankfully, we somehow dodged most of these bumpers here. Now, with that particular special stage ring right there, if I accidentally overshoot it, well, if I don't make it in nick of time, basically though what happens was though is that Sonic will just goes autopilot and then exit off screen. And relatively speaking though, I've seen a lot of players out there have already experienced this issue, and whenever I first played that, on the WiiWare version, my goodness, it happened to me for about like 10 times on that particular run through back then. Although that's not the case anymore though, because I'm pretty much used to with like slowing down a little bit, just to ensure for the fact that the actual momentum does not go continuously going forward, I will admit though. Well, mind you, because of how the fact that, well, as you can tell, we're now on to Special Stage 6, and basically though is about the fact that we can now start to be collecting the light blue Chaos Emerald. Now, similar to the forms of how it does it in not only in Sonic Advance 1, but as well as Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Advance 3, Sonic Rush, and Sonic Rush Adventure, the Chaos Emerald color order remains the same. Like, the first Chaos Emerald is obviously red, the second one is dark blue, or just blue in general, the third one is yellow, the fourth one is green, the fifth one is the grey, and obviously the sixth one is obviously light blue. And can you tell what the color of the final Chaos Emerald is going to be? Well, if you say purple, yes, because as far as I'm aware, yeah, that's basically all there is to it. However though, whenever we get on to episode 2 on the other hand, well, again, we'll save that particular topic and during at some point in the later weekends to come. So either way though, now I'm sure enough that was about the fact I just want to get this, the entire Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Saga games out of the way before we start to be playing through a good, I mean good, bunch of Sonic games again, because after all though, we've already experienced some bad Sonic games in the past few months for the sake of 2024, not only for the sake of the forms of redoing certain games like Sonic 06 for instance, and also, as I mentioned this before, we somehow tackled through the worst Sonic games ever made, if not the worst video games I've ever played, which is of course Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. I highly doubt I don't know if I can able to do Sonic Free Riders or anything else like that, because that game requires a Kinect accessory, and let me tell you, the setup is going to be a bit of a pain though, which I'm going to say this right about now. But it wasn't until I've realized that the game is now accessible without the forms of the Kinect peripheral, which thank goodness for that. So, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we now ended up on the boss fight in Casino Street Zone, and that's what appears to be Dr. Eggman's party. So yeah, every time whenever you get into the actual level, the levels themselves have their names on them. So yeah, that's one thing I will point out for the sake of time. And yeah, that boss looks familiar to you. Yeah, this boss plays out exactly like Casino Night Zone from Sonic 2, except that as soon as he's almost down, I believe you're able to actually activate a different attack, which as a result though, assuming of course about the fact that we have to keep on attacking him of course, and oh jeez, he's now electrocuted or electrified, so I wonder what he's gonna do with that. Oh wait a second, is he doing a screw attack or something? Wow, I wasn't expecting that attack, huh? But oh no, still pathetically easy, especially concerning for the fact that, well, again, this game is lacking originality. Although, there's one thing you might be able to realize, that if you pay attention to the background right onto the right, that, as I mentioned this before, this game was originally going to be a mobile exclusive game, tentatively titled Sonic the Portable. I mean, check on that Ferris wheel in the forms of Casino Street in the background. You can clearly see, you can still see the original Sonic the Portable graphic. I mean, can it really be bothered able to actually change the graphical oddities or something like that? Well, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1. Is that we're going on to the third zone in the game, which is Lost Labyrinth Zone, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get ourselves the 7th and the final Chaos Emerald. So, yeah, this is going to be quite of a challenge for the physics and all that. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.